Welcome to the Solar Line Business Babes podcast. My name is Susan Francis and I'm a mindset manifestation expert, business coach and mentor helping women quantum leap their business success and make the seemingly impossible a reality. And if you're here, you've been called here for a reason. You know within your soul that you are capable of so much more, and I'm here to help you unlock your full potential and manifest your dream life and business. It is my mission to empower female entrepreneurs to connect back to their soul, to their true calling, and to create a business from a place of alignment and purpose. So if you're struggling with hard work and force in your business, then get ready to let go of everything you think you know. It's time to forget all the stress, all the strategies, all the hustle, and instead unlock the secret to manifesting your next level of abundance. Join me as I deep dive into creating a business that flows, teach you how to trust your intuition, create a mindset of abundance, experience more joy, and to learn how to become magnetic to the money and success you desire. I have a down-to-earth, strictly no BS approach and make the woo-woo seem logical and actionable. I know that the knowledge, tools, and insights I share will change your life and the way you approach your business forever. And I'm excited to help you expand. Let's get started. Welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about fear, because in my experience, if you're not creating what you want in your life, if you're not receiving what you desire, then it comes down to fear. So is fear controlling your life? So let's go a bit deeper and kind of look at the ways that fear could be running your life, because you might not think that you're living in fear, but let's shed some light on it, because it's when we shed light on these things that we're able to identify them and release them. Like being able to identify what is actually blocking you, what is actually stopping you from aligning and getting everything you want is so powerful. And it's work that I do daily, on myself, for my business, anything I want, anything that's not coming, I have to look at what is holding me back. And fear is a big part of it. So to understand it, what you kind of need to know is that your subconscious mind runs the show. Your subconscious mind is 95% of your mind. So only 5% is actually your conscious thoughts. Most things are happening at a subconscious level. So you're just responding and reacting to things because of old programming and beliefs. And so if you don't interrupt them, if you don't question them, you will go through your life just sort of operating on autopilot. And if you've got disempowering beliefs, if you've got beliefs that are attached to fear, then they will run the show, right? So even if you consciously know something, like you can consciously know, like let's just take, for example, doing some public speaking, for example. Consciously, you know that there's nothing bad is going to happen to you, right? Nothing physically bad is going to happen to you if you get up there and you public speak. But there's a big part for a lot of people, there's a big part that's afraid that there still has this fear, and it's this huge fear that comes up subconsciously, but it's really a fear of being judged, a fear of being criticized, right? You logically might know, look, there's nothing bad that's going to happen. It's completely safe. It's completely okay. But yet you still can be fearful, right? Your subconscious mind can still get in the way, because the subconscious mind, it's there to protect us. And so if it believes you're in danger, right, when you have fear, it will stop you. Now, the fear is a really important emotion. I mean, if there's a saber-toothed tiger at your door, then you want to launch into fear, right? Because that then creates the fight or flight response, and that could keep you alive. But in our day and age, the most of the things that we're afraid of most of the things that we're afraid of aren't real, right? There's not a real danger. It's a made up fear. And here's the thing, the ego or your lower self actually disguises fear as other things. So you might not think that you're really afraid of anything, but things like comparison, jealousy, staying safe, being busy, excuses like no time, no money, or being too old or too young, all of these are actually based in fear. And we're going to go into some of the examples so you can really get it, right? Because you might be thinking that comparing yourself to others is a separate issue, or just even, excuses like no time, I don't have the time to do that, I don't have the money to do that, I'm too old to do that. You might think that that's a legitimate belief, a legitimate story, but it's actually It's actually fear disguised by the ego, right? So the ego really, when I talk about the ego is really just the lower self. It's the lower vibrational energy, lower thoughts, lower feelings that keep you separate from others. And the opposite is your higher self. It's your inner being, high vibrations, feeling of love and connection, right? So that's all it is. When I talk about ego, it's just really that lower self, right? And it wants to keep you safe. It's wanting to keep you it doesn't want you to step outside your comfort zone. It wants to keep you safe. It wants to play small, right? It's your ego. It's afraid. It's living in fear. And I love the acronym FEAR, false expectations appearing real, right? There's not, like I said, unless there's a saber-toothed tiger at your door, there's not a lot that you're afraid of that is a real threat to you, right? Most of them are just made up stories in your head. So let me give you some examples. Have you ever thought about doing something new, right? Like doing something new in your business, or maybe even starting a new business, and perhaps talked yourself out of it, right? Perhaps you've convinced yourself that it wasn't right for you for whatever reason. Like maybe it wasn't the right choice. More likely than not, what's behind it is another culprit, which is fear, right? Because often when we think about doing something new, taking a new leap of faith, doing something very different that we've ever done before, you've talked yourself out of it saying, no, it's not really the right time, or I don't really have the skills, or it's just not really the right time in my life. But really what's probably behind it is a fear of uncertainty and a fear of failure, right? A fear of failure stops most people from ever getting started. Well, what if it doesn't work out? Well, what if it doesn't work out? What does that mean? What's the meaning that you're attaching to it, right? So if you start a business, if you go all in and things don't work out the way you want it to, what's that meaning that you're attaching to it? I know for me, I attached a meaning of failure. If things did not work out how I wanted, month by month, I would set goals. And when they didn't work out, I would be telling myself a story that I was a failure. And so I had this huge fear every month of failing, right? And of course, it's self-perpetuating because what you focus on, you create, right? So being afraid of failure just meant that I was so focused on that, I just couldn't get to my goals, right? Because I was attracting what I was a match to, and that was things not working out, okay? But when it comes to failure, ask yourself, how will you know when you failed, right? For that thing that you've been thinking about starting, like how will you know when you failed? Is it when you give up? Is it when you quit? Is failing just not reaching your goal this month? Because I think it's really important to really dig deep and look at what exactly are you really afraid of, right? What's the meaning that you're giving to it? What is that meaning about yourself? This is one of the things, I talked about in my last episode, letting go, is that I had to let go of, in order to be able to jump to that next level and have that quantum expansion, I really had to let go of the need to actually create the income or the clients to feel good about myself. I accepted and I made peace with where I was at, knowing that my work was powerful and knowing that no matter what happens this month or this week, I'm still going to be okay. I'm still on this journey. I'm absolutely doing this no matter what. I know the vision for my business and where I'm going, right? And so I made peace with that. I was able to look at the bigger picture and go, one quiet month or one failed launch or whatever it is doesn't define me. So I was able to release that fear and let it go, right? So often when we think about doing something new or think about taking a big jump or changing direction, it's often the fear of uncertainty or the fear of failure that is stopping you, right? Recently, that's another example. I spoke to a client recently who has a network marketing business, and she knows what she needs to do, right? She knows what she needs to do to create the sales in her business, run workshops, and she loves doing them and she's good at them. And yet she stops herself from doing it. She doesn't book them in, and she didn't really understand why. But when we did some digging, right, we looked under that, like, why isn't she doing the thing that she knows is going to create the sales? And people tell her she's good at it and she actually enjoys it, but yet she doesn't actually book them in. We discovered that what she was really worried about is, what are people going to think, right? It's a fear of judgment. It's a fear of rejection. So her not booking in these workshops she'd been telling herself all these other stories that she was too busy and that it had to wait. And, there were a whole list of other excuses, but really it came down to that fear of judgment and rejection. Because if she didn't have that fear of judgment or rejection, she'd just be booking them in. They're not that hard for her. It's that fear. It's that, well, what will people think of me, that has held her back, right? That has held her back. And you need to let that go. You need to let that go. The only person who you need to be worried about their judgment is your own judgment, right? That's the only person that counts, how you feel about you. And you because we are magnetic, we are energetic beings, we are always attracting to us who we are being. So when you show up knowing that you're enough, knowing your work's amazing, knowing that you're good enough, you will attract others that also feel the same. Not everyone's going to love you, but you've got to be okay with that, right? They are not your people. They are not your people. And the sooner you let that one go, the sooner you will move forward. Fear of judgment and fear of rejection is a huge one, right? We're often looking for that validation from others, but you need to validate yourself, right? The validation's all got to come from within. Another example, have you ever perhaps been in a job that you hate? I'm sure you have. Or maybe even in a house you didn't like, but you haven't been able to bring yourself to do anything about it, right? So, that happened to me for many, many years, stuck in jobs that really unfulfilled me and just not taking that leap, right? And it came down to a fear of change, right? A fear of this is what I know. Maybe the grass isn't greener, right? That fear of change. Or what if I do move jobs and it's too hard, or it's, I'm not going to enjoy it? Or what if it can often be a fear of change, a fear of the unknown. This keeps a lot of people stuck where they are, just that fear of, a lot of people aren't comfortable with uncertainty. And when you're changing things, you've got to be able to be okay with uncertainty, right? It's a really, this is the thing, I'm sure you've heard this saying before, all of your growth happens outside of your comfort zone. So it's the amount of discomfort that you're able to live with that will define the quality of your life. You've got to be able to get uncomfortable. You've got to be able to step outside into that place of uncertainty and trust that things are going to work out, right? So if you've been stuck in a place where you're wanting to make a shift, then it could be that you're afraid of change, right? So I just really want to help you identify all the ways that, you've been telling yourself these stories. You might be telling yourself this story, oh, it's not the right time to make the change. Or like I said, when it comes to, that example of that network marketing client, she was telling herself that she didn't have the time to do the workshops. But that's all BS, right? It's really fear that's stopping her. And the minute you identify it, it gives you back your power, because you can choose to do something differently. You can choose to feel the fear and make that decision anyway, right? Make that decision anyway. Now, I know that there's probably some of you that have experienced this next one as well, a fear of, perhaps you've been in a relationship that's toxic and you should get out, but you can't bring yourself to leave, right? I'm sure, I've certainly been there, not super toxic, but certainly in a relationship that had, was long past its expiry date, right? So staying in relationships way longer than that you should, right? Being in a relationship that's toxic, or just one that doesn't fulfill you. If this is you being stuck and not making that shift, then perhaps there's a fear of being alone. Perhaps there's a fear of not being loved, right? And that can often keep people stuck. It can keep people stuck thinking that this sort of companionship, this sort of unfulfilled relationship is better than no relationship. But again, here's the truth, is that you create your own love, right? You create your own love. You love you first. You generate the love in your life. And from that place, you will be magnetic to someone that's a match to it. So I promise you, no matter where you're at, there is someone out there that can be your match, but you loving you and you being enough in yourself is where it starts, right? Is where it starts. And there are so many ways we can experience love too. There seems to be this huge focus on obviously having a significant other, but there are so many ways that you can experience love. Like I said, you can give love to yourself with friendships, with children, children, with family. You know, they'll give you so many ways you can experience love. And the more love you have and the more love you generate, the more you will draw into your life other people that love you and see that in you too, right? Now, comparison, like constantly comparing yourself to others, scrolling through social media, you know, comparing yourself to how much to someone else's life, how much they've achieved, how perfect their life seems to be, wondering why yours isn't. You know, all of that comparison, it's a fear of not being enough, right? It's all a fear of not being enough. Like, we're all different, we're all unique. I know that you can get that, right? But yet that comparison is that fear of you in all of yourself not being enough, that maybe you need to be more like someone else, right? Maybe you need to have achieved what she's achieved. Maybe your life should be more perfect like hers appears to be. Maybe you should be slimmer like she is, you know? It's a fear of you not being enough. But the truth is, you being enough is always, like, you being you is always enough. That is the truth. You being you is always enough. You were born enough. You are enough. And we are all on our own journey, right? Everyone is on their own journey and at a different place in their life. But that comparison is a fear of you not being enough. So underneath all of these fears is really this deep-rooted belief that, you know, two things really: fear of not being enough and fear and afraid we won't be loved. You know, that fear of judgment, that fear of judgment is a fear of not being loved. That fear of uncertainty or fear of failure is a fear of not being enough. So the first step, I guess, in shifting all of this is really to recognize where you are living in fear. Is fear controlling your life? Is fear stopping you from stepping forward, right? Because so much of so many of the restrictions or the limitations that people live under are based in fear, right? Afraid of not being enough, fear of being judged, fear of rejection, fear of failure, right? These things keep people stuck, these fears, and they're not real. They are just the stories that you're telling yourself. They're the meanings that you've attached to things. So your first step in breaking free is recognizing them, being able to recognize what is really happening here, right? What are those stories that you're telling yourself and what's really behind that? So asking yourself, like, you know, what's stopping me from making this change? Any area that, you know, you feel that you want to make a shift in or you're not living up to, you know, in your business, what is it that you've thought about doing and then you've stopped? What's really behind that, right? What's really behind that? So the first step is definitely to recognize. The second step is really to kind of sit with yourself and be able to ask, and journaling is a great way to do this. You know, what meaning am I giving to this? What's really stopping me from making this shift? If I'm not fulfilled here, if I'm not happy here, if I want to do this new thing, if I want to go here or do that, or what's really stopping me, right? So really identifying that and just acknowledging that it is probably fear, right? It's probably fear. And there are many ways to release it. Like I said, just often identifying it can be so powerful. Using EFT to shift fears, or emotional freedom technique, or tapping is a great way to release fears. But it's always returning to love, right? It's returning to love, because from that place of love, you can't feel fear, right? So returning to love, remembering why you want to do something, you know, connecting to your own worthiness, connecting to who you are, that is enough, right? Really coming inward and knowing that no matter what, you're enough, you're loved, and you put that into yourself, right? So much comes back to just that self-love and worthiness. But yeah, identifying is fears is the first step in releasing them. And so much of what is limiting you and holding you back is a fear. And the minute you recognize that, sometimes just recognizing that allows you to go, oh my God, I can't believe that that's been stopping me. I'm going to do that thing anyway, right? I'm going to do that thing anyway. Who cares what people think, right? Who cares what people think? I mean, like I said, it's you. It's about you and your relationship with you. It's about you knowing that you're enough, you loving yourself, and knowing that you will attract into your life that which is an energetic match to you. So the more you love yourself, the more self-worth you put into yourself, the more you're attracting other things that are a match to that, right? So be fearless. Feel that fear and do it anyway. That is my message to you today. So identify where you've got those fears and release them. So I hope that has been helpful. Fear is behind so much of what's holding you back, but it's not that hard to let it go, right? It's not that hard to let it go. Identifying it's the first step. And for those of you, just another quick reminder, the Aligned Abundance 4-week intensive starts next week. This is a 4-week group program that is really going to help you shift into alignment with your business. I'm going to drop the link in here. It's going to be so epic. I'm just so excited about this. It really helps you identify all those limitations and fears and quickly release them, because when you do, you become an energetic match to whatever you want to create, and things shift so quickly. So I'll put the link in the show notes for you to take a look if you are interested. So excited for the women joining, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you loved what you heard here and are excited for your expansion. If it resonated with you, then please screenshot this podcast and share it with your friends, and hashtag Soul Aligned Business Babes. And please rate and review so I can spread the word and keep bringing you more goodness. If you're not already following me on social media, come and join the party for extra inspiration and teachings. I do live trainings in my Facebook group, which you can join at facebook.com/groups/soulaligned.bb. You can follow me on Instagram at I am Susan Francis, or come to my website at susanfrancis.com.au and download your free manifestation meditation and check out what programs I'm currently offering. I'm so excited you joined me here today and can't wait to share the next episode with you. Until then, remember you are powerful beyond measure and your success is inevitable.